We're not saying our black lives matter more than you. We're saying our black lives matter too.
The arrival of more than 400 happy Jamaicans. They've come to help the motherland along the road to prosperity.
Away from the relics of empire and the long-abandoned vestiges of colonial grandeur, what does it really mean to be black and British today? This is Piers the poet, a spoken word artist, struggling to make sense of it all through poems like this one.
And if we aren't heard with a knee or with a raised fist, how else can we resist? I think the greatest trick racism ever played was convincing England it doesn't exist.
For decades, Britain has been having its own race reckoning. In the past, the spark has been police brutality, social injustice, or income inequality, but underpinning it all, a sense many say that to be black and to be British is to feel unwelcome in your own home. The Black Lives Matter movement has crossed the Atlantic and awakened uncomfortable conversations. Now an exclusive CNN Savanta Res poll has found how sharply the nation is divided along race lines. Policing, representation, history. It's clear that to be black in Britain is almost to live in a different country. 5 black British friends gained global fame after a picture of them carrying a white man to safety from the middle of the crush of a violent London protest went viral. Hailed as heroes, but the truth is more complicated.
We, as brothers, as sons, as fathers, have that little trust in the police. On Saturday, that we had to technically go out to do their job for them.
Our poll found black people are twice as likely as white people to say they have not been treated with respect by police.
Do we feel protected by the police? Not at all.
The police are institutionally racist. There may be individuals within the system that are trying to do a good job, but as a collective, they're racist.
What do you think a police officer thinks when he looks at you?
Colour. Race, colour. First thing they notice. And that should be the last thing they notice.
Unfortunately, threat.
You think the first thing a police officer sees when they look at you, a black man, is a threat?
I think they see us as the majority of society sees us as a threat, and it's fear.
And it's not just the police. When it comes to other institutions of power, the racial divide is just as stark. Black people are significantly more likely than white people to say the party in power, the Conservatives, is institutionally racist. The final moments of the toppling of the statue of slave trader Edward Colston. For over a century, he presided over a central square in the British city of Bristol. Then, protesters took matters into their own hands. You can see the hugely emotional moment when the crowd, white and black, rolled Colston's statue to the docks where the human beings he traded were auctioned off. Wish, a local musician, was there that day. He grew up in the shadow of Colston's statue, and he watched it topple.
Systematic slavery, it's got to stop. It's embedded deep in the roots, in the education systems, in the public sectors, in everything all through life. It's all got to change.
You wouldn't have a statue of Hitler, so why would you have a statue of him? Do you know what I mean?
Led by Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who in his former job as a journalist used a colonial-era racial slur to mock Africans, the British government is now threatening to bring in up to 10-year jail sentences for what it calls desecration of history. But whose history? Our polling found black people were more than twice as likely to support the removal of those statues by protesters as white people, and almost 3 times as likely to say that the British Empire as a whole was a bad thing. World War II-era British Prime Minister Winston Churchill's history, like much of Britain's, is complicated by the legacy of his role in Britain's empire. Under his now heavily guarded statue, we spoke to Aima. Because it's not just Britain's past, this struggle is also about its present.
I thought
why can't a young black woman use her voice and spread the word? Because until these protests, I never knew that I had a voice.
18-year-old Ima is one of the 2 organisers of the British Black Lives Matter protest. She says she has faced sustained harassment for that role and asked us not to use her surname. Originally from Nigeria, moving to Britain, she says, has been difficult.
When I first moved to this country, I did get racist anonymous messages from people around my area. And I think that was the first realization that racism is very prominent in this country. And covert racism, ignorance, going onto the tube and seeing women and men clutch their handbags and their briefcases. Our lives matter, and we aren't going to stop until the government makes an effort to promote that.
And she's not alone in feeling that way. Black people are nearly twice as likely as white people to say the UK has not done enough to address historic racial injustice. So what do our findings mean for this nation divided?
What is clear is that there is a divide between what many Black Britons experience and what many white Britons believe that experience to be, which means that what so many Black leaders, Black activists, and even just everyday, ordinary Black Brits have been saying for years is true, that when they speak about racism, so many of their white countrymen don't believe them. And that is something that is going to have to be reckoned with if there is any hope for this country to move together towards a united future.